He lived his life in silence, but not because he had nothing to say, but because every time he spoke, no one really listened. Have you ever felt that way? Like your voice is just an echo in an empty room? So, he stopped trying. He retreated into the one place where he felt heard, the one place where he felt safe, the quiet world inside his own mind. There, his thoughts became his constant companions. They were his closest friends and his most bitter enemies. They'd whisper to him in the dead of night, planting seeds of doubt that grew into towering forests of fear. "You can't change," they'd say. "You're too small for something great and the one that cut the deepest. You'll never be enough." He believed them, every single word. He didn't realize that this voice, which sounded so much like his own, wasn't the truth. It was just fear, wearing a familiar mask. Years went by in a blur of sameness. He walked the same streets, worked the same job, lived the same day over and over and over again. His life was a perfectly predictable loop, a cage he had unknowingly built for himself. He was comfortable in his quiet prison, never realizing the doors were unlocked the entire time. Until one morning, something broke the loop. Standing by a park, he saw a small child, maybe a year old, trying to learn how to walk. The child would wobble, take a tentative step, and then tumble onto the soft grass. Did the child cry? Sometimes, but what struck the man was what happened next. Without hesitation, the child would push himself up, a look of pure determination on his face, and try again. And again, and again. He fell dozens of times. But not once did he stop. Not once did a voice in his head say, "Maybe this isn't for you." There was no cage of doubt, no echo of past failures. There was only pure, unfiltered instinct. The instinct to rise, the instinct to move forward. And in that moment, watching that tiny, relentless human, something deep inside the man awakened. It was like a dormant switch had been flipped. A lifetime of rust and dust was shaken loose. He realized, with a clarity that was both terrifying and liberating, that fear had trained him to give up before he even started. He saw that his own mind had become the most intricate prison ever, designed not built by the hard realities of the world, but by the soft, persistent whispers of repetition. That night, for the first time in years, he sat in silence with a new purpose. He wasn't there to escape his thoughts. He was there to confront them. He closed his eyes, and one by one, he invited them in. Every limiting belief, every painful memory, every single lie he had ever told himself. They appeared before him like shadows, dancing in the dark. He looked at the shadow that said, "You're not smart enough." He faced the one that whispered, "You'll always be alone." He stared into the darkness of "You'll never be enough." And as each one loomed over him, he asked it a simple, powerful question. "Who told me I couldn't?" The shadows flickered. They had no answer, because they weren't other people. They weren't the world's Te Weri Im. And in the profound silence that followed, the real answer echoed back, clear as a bell. "You did." It was never life that had trapped him. It was the stories he repeated to himself, day after day, until they became his reality. The truth is the most powerful voice you'll ever hear. Is your own. So, what story are you telling yourself? Is it one that builds a prison, or one that helps you break free? That night, he made a choice. He decided to become a new storyteller. He started with a single sentence, whispered into the darkness of his room. "What if I can?" It was small. It was fragile. But it was a start. The next day, he walked a different street. He spoke to a stranger. He applied for a job he thought was out of his league. He fell, just like the child. He stumbled. He felt the old fears creeping back in. But this time, he didn't stop. He remembered the child. He remembered the instinct to rise. He learned that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to act despite it. It's hearing that voice of doubt and saying, "Thank you for sharing, but I'm going to try anyway." This journey isn't about becoming fearless. It's about becoming free. Free from the stories that hold you back. Your mind can be a prison, or it can be a landscape of infinite possibility. The choice, as it always has been, is yours. What new story will you start telling yourself today? Ever felt like you're trapped, not by walls or bars, but by something invisible? Something inside your own head. There was once a man who felt exactly this way. He lived in a world of his own making, a prison built not of stone, but of stories. Stories he told himself every single day. Stories like, I'm not good enough, I'll never succeed, what if I fail? These weren't just thoughts. They were the very bars of his cage, the chains that held him back from the life he secretly craved. He would speak, but his words felt hollow, echoing in a void. He wanted the world to see him, to understand the potential he felt simmering beneath the surface. But all they saw was the cage he had built around himself. His reality was shaped by these self-imposed limits. He saw missed opportunities, not as chances for growth, but as proof of his inadequacy. He saw success in others, not as inspiration, but as a painful reminder of his own perceived shortcomings. Every day was a battle, not against the world, but against the relentless whisper of his own doubts. He was the prisoner, and the warden was his own mind. One day, standing before a mirror, he didn't just see his reflection. He saw the architect of his own confinement. It was a jarring, uncomfortable realization. Who wrote these stories? Who gave these thoughts so much power? The answer was staring right back at him. It was him, and in that moment of raw honesty, a tiny spark of rebellion ignited within him. If he was the author of his own misery, couldn't he also be the author of his own freedom? Couldn't he write a different story? This single question was the beginning of everything. It was the first crack in the walls of his prison. He began the slow, deliberate process of rewriting his internal script. It wasn't an overnight miracle. It was a patient, line-by-line revision of an old, worn-out book. The phrase "I can't do it" was painstakingly erased and replaced with the defiant whisper, "I will try." The heavy cloak of "I'm not enough" was shed for the lighter, more hopeful mantra, "I'm growing every day." He started to challenge every negative assumption that bubbled up. When his mind screamed, "You'll fail," he learned to calmly reply, "And what if I do? I will learn." Each new thought, each questioned belief, became a key, unlocking another door, another forgotten hallway in the vast expanse of his own mind. Weeks turned into months. The world outside his window didn't magically change. The challenges were still there. The bills still arrived, and people were still people. But inside, a revolution was taking place. He had changed, and as he changed, his perception of the world transformed with him. A difficult conversation was no longer a threat, but an opportunity to connect. A new project was no longer a mountain of potential failure, but a landscape of possibility. The world started to respond not to a new person, but to the new energy he projected. He walked with a lighter step, spoke with a clearer voice, and the world, in turn, seemed to open up before him. He began to speak again, but this time his intention was different. It wasn't about being heard or seeking validation anymore. He spoke to share his discovery, to hold a mirror up for others who might be trapped in their own invisible cages. He spoke to remind them that the freedom they seek doesn't begin when the world finally understands them. It begins the moment they start to understand themselves, the moment they dare to challenge the narratives they've accepted as truth. Because the greatest prison we will ever face is not built of concrete and steel. It's constructed from the thoughts we never question, the beliefs we never challenge, and the stories we tell ourselves on repeat. The moment you dare to ask, is this really true? That's the moment you begin to dismantle the walls. You start to hear the echo of something deeper, something more authentic. It's the sound of the real you, waiting patiently, ready to be set free. Thank you so much for watching. If this message resonated with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more content on unlocking your potential. We'll see you in the next one.